Good morning, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning. The theme of our discussion is fire restoration, and confessedly, it is one of the more challenging jobs that restoration companies undertake. It can be very intricate, very difficult to get right, and I look forward to sharing some of the know-how and techniques and processes to enable you and your company to get it right first time. One of the things that is fairly obvious with fire restoration is that there's many ways of getting it to an 8 out of 10 result, but getting it up to a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, getting that last 20%, that's reserved for the professionals, those who pay attention to detail, those who've had the correct training, CRC training, which we highly recommend. And these webinars that we run, we work very carefully in the creation of them so that they fit into the CRC framework. So there's nothing that contradicts what is said in those publications, which we hold in high regard, along with the trainers in our industry. So we will go through this webinar, and hopefully we can provide you some substantial assistance in your business. Please remember that there is the Q&A function, which is a little button at the bottom of your screen. So please ask some questions as you go along, and we'll attempt to answer them at the end. If we don't get to your question, we will certainly answer in the white paper that follows. So straight after this webinar, we will be creating the white paper. We will also be uploading the video recording too, which will appear on your email with a link, and it will also later appear on our YouTube channel. So please be sure to follow that through. One of our biggest challenges with fire restoration is to overcome rework and increasing your restoration success, which is one of the reasons why we want to go through some of these details. And process is perhaps one of the most critical things. There's a lot of reasons why restoration jobs fail along the fire remediation side. It's actually a bit of an unusual name, fire restoration. It should be called smoke removal, soot removal. But a couple of things that keep on presenting themselves is misidentified residues, the lack of substrate knowledge, incorrect processes, and incorrect chemistry. And incorrect chemistry is one of the key reasons why I'm here today, because you can achieve so much better results by not only using quality chemistry, but using the correct chemistry. These often lead themselves to incomplete soot removal, extended treatment time, failed odor removal, and substrate damage. And worse for your company is callback and rework. The ultimate casualty in a failed restoration job is the cost. The cost to you and the cost to the customer. And we all know that there's various other parties involved in these too. The insurer, there's a loss adjuster, and you have to remember, as we're all very cognizant, is that your reputation is at stake. But callbacks is one of the things that we need to avoid. This really damages your reputation as a restoration company and costs you a huge amount of time. Spending an extra few hours on the job to get it right, spending a bit of extra time on the correct equipment, the correct processes, the correct chemistry is a lot less expensive than getting one single callback. The extended labor times by doing a job in the least effective way, sides of a poorly organized restoration job. Remember that labor is one of your most costly sides of restoration work. Delayed completion, another one, and finally your inconsistent results. So we need to understand the background, you might say, to fire and civil. There's no ways that we're going to get our job right if we don't understand the the basics of what causes the soiling as well as the substrates that it relates to. You need to have at least a couple of people in your team that have really studied this concept thoroughly, put their heart and soul into it. There's people out in the industry that have done it, that have got ahead. People like Michael Gordon, have to give him a shout out. They're live studying things like fire and smoke and how to get it right. So you need one of those people in your team. The first of it is understanding the fire intensity. This really determines the smoke residue and the restoration complexity of the operation of the job. So understanding what smoke is a factor which requires further understanding. We don't have time to go into this in a great amount of detail, but it's worthwhile doing a little bit of your own research, because this will help you dramatically in coming up with the correct process and coming up with the correct techniques. One of the key things with your restoration team is not only just dishing out steps or even processes, but helping them to understand as to why they are doing what they're doing, why they're using the agitation they're using, why they're using these chemistries that they're using, why they're using the particular process. It enables them to take a greater interest in the job, but it also means that when things start going wrong, they know what to change to enable to bring about the level of success that you're looking for. So key thing with smoke is that it's essentially contains gases and very microscopic carbon particles. This is all from incomplete combustion. I think one of the only things that gives complete combustion is actually ethanol. So burning ethanol is one of the only fire fuels that gives 100% complete combustion, which is one of the reasons why you can burn ethanol inside. But most smoke particles are less than 1 micron in size. That is incredibly small. And this is one of the reasons why it gets into all those incredibly small crevices and pores in the substrates that you're trying to clean, which makes it so difficult to remove, as well as getting into areas that you never dreamt that smoke could get into. Remember also that smoke is often toxic, so we need to have a word in our webinar about the need to protect your technicians, wear the correct PPE, wear the correct respiratory equipment to protect them from this smoke inhalation. And it is acidic, in other words, it can damage substrates, and it is highly penetrating. Mostly due to the electronic charge or electric charge that it carries, but also because of its microscopic character. The other side of smoke to understand is the heat and humidity that occurs at the time of the fire and at the time of it being extinguished by water. So depending on the amount of water or the type of fire extinguisher that was used, this can dramatically affect as to where the smoke has penetrated and how deeply it has actually penetrated into substrates. This makes a big difference not only in the cleaning but also in the final eradication of the smoke odours, which is a crucial part of our whole smoke and soot remediation process. There's 3 fire types which we need to discuss, and understanding these fire types will assist us with not only eradicating the smoke odor molecule, but also helping us to get the smoke, helping us to remove the smoke and the soot residues. Fair enough, it's very difficult for us to put every fire situation into one of these 3 cubby holes that we'll discuss, but having an understanding of them does help you come up with the correct processes, and also helps you to change direction if things aren't going right. So synthetic fires is the first one. This is where we land up with a lot of incomplete combustion. It's where hydrocarbons are involved due to the burning of plastics, which includes electrical fires. This can include even synthetic clothing. And the smoke is typically very dark. It is black, and it's where a lot of the very dark soot comes into play. The protein fires is the second one. A lot of protein fires are more localized, typically as a result of a failed cooking expedition. something going wrong in the stove. And then lastly, our natural fires, which does cover a bit of a broad range, but typically is anything cellulose. So paper fires, cardboard, but then it includes all of our timber and our wood, includes the bushfire type smoke as well. So that's what we plug in under the natural fire category. Typically a powder grey to black odor, black deposit, and has a pretty natural type of odor. So those are the three key fire types that is worthwhile understanding. And I say, do a little bit more of your own research. The order of process is perhaps the most important part of this whole presentation. The understanding of getting the process right and helping your team to understand the process is critical towards getting the final results and the final odor control that you are looking for. First is very important is the dry removal. Now we've got a picture of a vacuum cleaner there, and we trust it's got HEPA filters in it. Very, very important. But it also includes the removal of as much dry debris as possible. So everything that is going to be discarded, everything that is beyond remediation must be removed, and anything that needs to be stripped out at this point as well. So remove as much as you can dry. And as I say, if you're going to be using a vacuum cleaner, which is very, very helpful in these situations, it must be used with a HEPA filter so that you're not just simply redistributing these microparticles around the area. Then we move on to deep clean and wet removal. One of the key things to understand just with the deep clean side of it, and we use the word wet removal there, is to understand when dry removal is the best option, in other words, with the fire sponges, and when we need to use chemicals. Now, we do understand as well that there is other techniques out there, including soda blasting and sanding, etc., which can create a lot of particles, and you have to have very good containment to use those, so that you do not spread these toxic soot and smoke particles further around the building. But we're going to be focusing just on dry soot sponges, dry smoke sponges, and the wet removal. So typically on our natural fires and on smooth substrates, the smoke sponges work very well. The minute we start getting across onto synthetic fires, those smoke sponges tend to just spread the smoke and the soot's residue. Even many protein fires, they can go either way, but you can also land up with a lot of just smudging when you use the dry smoke sponges. And so those are the two fires, the synthetic fires and the protein fires, which really benefit from the use of wet removal, that is with chemistry, and especially our unique System 7 sponge. Once the deep clean has been completed, then we move on to the odor neutralization, which we'll cover in some detail. We could add a fourth step there, and that includes repainting and also possibly sealing areas with a blocker paint. So in terms of hard surface soot removal, on resistant surfaces, resilient surfaces, the Actichem Fire Restore is the product of choice. Typically diluted down around about 1 in 10, can be used as strong as 1 in 5. Typically 1 in 10 is a good dilution to start with, but can be used up to about 1 in 20. Now, the unique thing about the Fire Restore as well as the Fire Fix, which we'll discuss in the next slide, is that they are not just a water-based degreaser. Many people have used water-based degreasers and come up with relatively good results. However, where the Fire Restore really makes a difference is it addresses that static charge that is so prevalent with smoke and soot restoration. The static charge illustrates itself very much in the fire cobwebs. Everybody knows about the fire cobwebs that you see around buildings. So most of the soot, the smoke that is attached to surfaces, especially smooth surfaces, is held on there by a large degree with a static charge. You need to address that static charge. You need to reverse that static charge, and the soot actually comes off the surface relatively easily after that. So the Fire Restore addresses all of these sides to smoke and soot restoration, including the very oily residue, greasy residue that comes along with it, and team that up with the System 7 pad, and we come up with very, very good results. The System 7 pad is used wet, obviously, with the Fire Restore, the Fire Fix, but where people have typically used a cloth or a sponge or even a white or red or blue pad, the System 7 pad will produce results where people have typically been used to having to paint afterwards. In other words, being able to achieve 80% results and then paint to achieve that final 20%. The System 7 pad, in many cases, gives you that 100% result from the word go. Not only does it give you that 100% result, but it gives it to you a lot faster. So we're saving labor, we're saving costs there. So very, very important. Now, the other thing I just want to mention is the importance of maintaining a wet edge. This is a technique which many people know about, but very, very important that on the edge that you're working to, and you'll be doing a section, removing the soot and washing it down, leave a section which is possibly half the length of a ruler, 150 mils, 4 or 5 inches, and you don't rinse that off with water. So when you begin your next section, you overlap onto that, and what that saves you is having that edge that you can't remove off. So you land up with all these divisions that you've cleaned, and then you land up with the shadow that you can't remove in between the areas that you've cleaned. Maintaining a wet edge overcomes that. Even if you're leaving it for the night and continuing the next day for whatever reason, you leave that wet edge. A very, very important technique. The Fire Fix is a partner product to the Fire Restore, and the Fire Fix is dedicated to substrates that are more delicate. So this can include your soft furnishings, can include your carpets, can be used with garments through a wash cycle in the laundrettes. Many people will always also use the Fire Fix even on hard surfaces. So on plasterboard, on paintwork, the Fire Restore is typically a very, very good go-to product. But if you've got any doubts, if you've got any challenges, the Fire Fix is a more technologically higher product, but it also is less damaging to substrate. So even on lacquered paints, on lacquered coatings, I should say, furniture, the Fire Fix is the way to go. So it is very much a product that you can also use with the Fire Restore sponge, with the System 7 sponge, and certainly something that is worthwhile having in your inventory. The next thing that we want to talk about is the whole issue with shadowing and embedded carbon. So shadowing and staining and embedded carbon is perhaps one of the things that restoration companies really struggle with. And this is where I want to introduce the OxyBoost Plus. So the OxyBoost Plus is a product which is a oxidizing agent, very, very concentrated, powerful oxidizing agent with additional stain removal properties in it. But mixing the OxyBoost Plus as a booster in with either the Fire Restore or the Fire Fix goes a long way towards oxidizing all those micro smoke particles and removing the shadow that occurs with smoke restoration before it even happens. So especially on jobs that are more porous, such as stonework, concrete, face bricks, even on a lot of wood areas, the addition of the OxyBoost Plus makes a huge difference. Not only does it remove all those smoke particles at a micro level and enable you to achieve a much cleaner and whiter, brighter result, but it also goes a long way to removing smoke odors as well. So remember, a lot of your smoke odors are occurring because of these trapped smoke odor particles that are trapped in the pores of the substrate. The OxyBoost Plus, in its micro ability using oxidizing agents, actually reduces significantly the amount of odors that are trapped behind. So we need to remember that when the substrate is under the heat of fire, it expands, especially wood, especially timber. As the fire progresses, these smoke particles get trapped in these microparticles. As those substrates cool, so does the timber contract, the pores become smaller and trap those particles. Hence the difficulty we have in removing odor particles completely. The OxyBoost Plus goes a long way towards reducing that. I've got a couple of pictures which I wanted to share with you. One is a picture we've used for several years just because it is so graphic on a plasterboard wall. And this is the use of the smoke, the System 7 fire sponge used with the fire restore. As you can see, the difference between before and after is very, very dramatic. The one nice thing about the System 7 pad, which does make it unique, is that when it gets to the stage that it looks like in that gentleman's hand, it can simply be washed and continue to be used. So it can be washed many, many times before you finally have to throw it out, which does make them very, very economical in use. So it becomes a very, very good way of applying the product onto the wall, agitating it and achieving those great results, rinsing it off and continuing with it. Very, very economical, which makes a clear distinction between it and the fire sponge, which is a single-use product. The next picture shows on a ceiling restoration job. Very, very graphic result there as well. The pictures on the right-hand side, I wanted to draw attention to because that is a anodized window frame. Now, the picture on the top is not before it was cleaned. That picture on the top is after it had been cleaned with many different techniques, very many different chemicals, and it was not coming clean. The bottom picture is the use of the the System 7 fire pad and fire fix. So the fire fix is a great product for those anodized areas, which are more delicate, you might say, than some of the other more resilient surfaces. And you can see the results that we're able to achieve with the System 7 pad. So it's a great shout out to the System 7 pad. Having spoken about those anodized surfaces, there are many surface challenges, and we need to understand our surfaces, understand our substrates. As with all cleaning, if you don't understand substrates, you're going to run into trouble. Not only do we need to understand the particular variations in substrates that make the soot or the smoke more difficult or less difficult to remove, but we also need to understand them from the point of view of not damaging them. So there's plasterboard, which is perhaps one of the more easy ones to get right, especially since plasterboard hopefully is mostly painted. Then there is carpet and textile restoration work, which is a lot more specialized, and that's where the fire fix comes in. We need to have a good understanding of carpet and upholstery cleaning to be able to tackle these effectively. Finished timber, a lot of our finished timber is found inside, including furniture, etc. And then there's structural timber and porous surfaces, where we struggle a lot with the expansion and contraction of the pores within those substrates. Concrete, masonry, and natural stone, once again, very porous surfaces. We want to be able to use those techniques we spoke about to enable us to prevent the formation of shadows, which are very, very difficult to remove. And then finally, metals, tile, and glass. These are 6 of the most common ones, not the only ones. There's many other substrates that we have to tackle. Things like chandeliers, things like decorations around the house, etc., etc. But these are the 6 most common substrates that you'll be tackling. The understanding of smoke odor is the last crucial phase of smoke and soot restoration. As we've spoken about, the smoke particles do embed themselves deeply within these substrates, and depending on the fuel type of the fire, as well as the high heat and the volume of water used, as well as the where the fire extinguishers are used, These are all key to understanding as to what's going to make our final smoke odor remediation a success. So the correct process is absolutely crucial. We have to make sure that we have removed every single particle that we're able to of our smoke and soot before we can attempt malodor neutralization. It is hard to understand sometimes the amount of calls we get where people are trying to jump into malodor restoration with cutting corners on the smoke odor restoration side of it, the smoke removal. So we need to get complete soot removal, and the oxidizers, as we mentioned, make a significant help in relation to this. Then the odor neutralization itself is that we need to remove the malodor itself, at a molecular level, and then secondly, we need to ensure that there is effective coverage of our odor neutralization chemistry. So we'll jump into that quickly now. The first step of odor neutralization products that we have on board is the DeoStore range, and these are all incorporate the Elimotech technology. So the Actichem Elimotech technology is a technology where the malodor molecule is attacked at a molecular level. So it is attacked at a very, very small micron level. So the one atom, you might say, of the odor neutralization chemistry combines itself with the atom or the compound of the malodor, and it forms a new molecule which is odorless. So that can never be reversed. So the odor is never going to come back, and you simply have a new molecule which is now odorless. You cannot smell. So that Elimotech technology is incorporated into all of the DeoStore products. So the DeoStore Fire is a product which comes in both citrus and floral fragrance. These citrus fragrances are typically associated with restoring natural fires, and the floral is typically associated with synthetic fires and our protein fires. They can be used on their own as a knockdown odor neutralizing at the beginning of the job, and they can also be used in combination with the fire fix or the fire restore, or they can be used as a post spray afterwards. We also have the DeoStore Extreme for those very, very severe situations. But DeoStore Extreme is also very, very much favored by people doing tobacco odor neutralization. So tobacco situations falls under the fire restoration sector as well, and that's where the DeoStore Extreme comes in very, very significantly. In terms of using the OxyBoost Plus and the fire restoration pad together with the DeoStore Extreme, those are three key factors in achieving successful tobacco residue and odor neutralization. That is your key to success in those ones. And then finally, there is the DeoStore Spray, which gives you a product which you can spray in the air. It incorporates all of those technologies, but with a system that enables it to hang in the air for a lot longer. It also produces a very micro particle, very, very small droplet size that gets into a lot of those small areas where perhaps you haven't been able to get to. It's a very nice product to finish off the job with. Finally, there is the thermal fogging products, which once again incorporate the Elimotech technology in a water-based system and in a solvent-based system that are suitable to be used through a thermal fogger. So the OdorTac W, the W stands for water-based, and these come once again in a floral and a citrus fragrance together with the Elimotech technology. And these are typically used in areas internally where the residue may fall onto furniture, onto carpets, onto indoor surfaces. And whilst we would typically cover them over with drop sheets, whatever the case may be, the W does give you a product which is going to be less damaging, especially where there is paint and lacquer involved. Then the SV version is used more in uninhabited areas, maybe attics, etc., behind walls or in strip out situations. So there's the W and the SV, both of them come in both the floral and the citrus, incorporating the Elimotech technology, and then also incorporating a replacement fragrance. So in all of the Deostore products we spoke about in the previous page, you finally got that replacement fragrance as well in the product. Very, very important to reset the olfactory senses so that there is a fresh replacement fragrance as part of the job. So that brings us to the end of our fire restoration webinar. The way to increase the productivity is incorporating these systems into your own systems, reduce the rework. That's our whole point. Enable faster workflow systems, get reliable outcomes, and build a very, very reputable and also a process that can be recommended by others. You need to establish a good reputation in terms of fire restoration. The final part is I just want to give a fresh shout out to the Disaster Restoration Handbook as well as the Carpet and Upholstery Handbook. Both of these products are now in print and are available for your teams. We've had hundreds of people take advantage of them, have taken many of them. Remember, these are free resources, and they basically fit that spot in between the training, which, as you say, is very, very important, and then what happens on the job. So coming up with the training, now incorporating that, implementing it together with the chemicals that are out in the market, the Actichem chemicals, which are so reputable and give you those reliable results. Disaster Restoration Handbook and the Carpet and Upholstery Handbook give your teams an absolute invaluable publication that they can take with them onto the job. There's an awful lot of learning in them, a lot of charts, a lot of tables, a lot of pictures, a lot of easy to read directions. Get your copy today. You can download a digital version, and you can get your your hands on a physical printed one as well. So we'll have a look. Hopefully we've got some questions coming our way that we can have a look at. The first question we have is, can you use the odor tack with a ULV wet fogger? Do any fogging chemicals provide encapsulation for areas you can't access? Yeah, thanks for that question. The ULV fogger, the odor tack products are designed for your ULV foggers. Of course, with the SV, we must use it through a through the thermal fogging process. They cannot be used cold. The W can be used cold, and it can be used on the heated. So that's where the odor tack fits in. In terms of encapsulation, the odor tack products don't provide that encapsulation. That is a separate chemistry, which there are some good encapsulation chemistries out there. I'm not too sure as to their implementation through a fogging machine, but certainly for areas that are difficult to reach, the odor tack W and the odor tack SV can provide you a very, very successful outcome in terms of smoke odor reduction or complete elimination through the use of a ULV fogger. The second question is in relation to using the Deostore products through a ULV fogger. The Deostore products, the Deostore Floral, the Deostore Citrus, and the Deostore Extreme can all be used on their own, diluted with water through a ULV fogger, but only on the cold setting. So they can be used cold through those ULV foggers. Apart from that, they need to be used through a wet spray, pump up type spray, a low pressure sprayer, altogether obviously with the chemicals that we spoke about. One other question is just in relation to using the OxyBoost Plus in combination with the System 7 fire pad. Yeah, absolutely. Makes a incredibly good combination. Mixing the OxyBoost Plus either with the Fire Restore or the Fire Fix. The other part of that question is as to the need to use a heated solution. Absolutely. The hotter you can make that solution, the better you're going to achieve the results. The OxyBoost Plus has got a potentiator in it, an activator in it, But if you can use those fire restore, those fire fix solutions hot in combination with the OxyBoost Plus, you're going to achieve a very, very superior result. Team that up with the System 7 pad, and furthermore, team that up with the DeoStore Fire or the DeoStore Extreme. You've got a winning combination there. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. And we look forward to putting the white paper together. We look forward to putting the video out there. Thank you very much for your loyalty. The Actichem team seriously appreciates it. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.